Hello, everybody. This is Lorenzo Fon here with These Aren't the Nerds You're Looking For podcasts. Here with
Kevin Horde. How you doing?
Good. How about yourself, man?
I'm doing well.
All right. We're on the last end of the theatrical film here after 4 weeks. Kicking into this. So this is Castle of Salvation. What minutes did this span? An hour and 9 minutes just to the very end, right?
Yep, about an hour, 9.5 minutes to basically 1:33, almost 1:34, and then after that is the credits. So
Credits. All right.
Yep.
Yeah, so the last things that were happening at the end of Castle of Doom, right, was the preceding one?
Correct. And I think we actually missed a little bit. You had brought it up toward the end that of a transmission going to Dooku.
To Jabba, right?
Right. So basically where we left off was that Anakin and Ahsoka had Rotta the Hutt. They're on their ship on the way to Tatooine. So we're just gonna cover everything from Tatooine on in this episode.
Yeah. So let's see. They approach Tatooine. The first note I have is that Ahsoka asks him about his time on Tatooine.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the nice, not subtle noise of a Tusken Raider. Did you notice that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. It's
not subtle, and the only reason I bring it up is because they do the exact same thing in Attack of the Clones.
Mm-hmm.
So that right off the bat kind of bothered me, but
don't they do that in Revenge of the Sith also when Sheev and Anakin are sitting there and Sheev goes, "Remember your mother," or something like that?
Yeah, and then just like in the background, you just hear like, oh God, really? Like, do we have to? They're already talking about it. We don't need to dive that deep in. Like, you might as well just go full flashback here. But that was just kind of the first thing I noticed and want to take a note on. But then, as they start making their approach, some fighters get on their tail, right?
Yeah.
There's then
some vulture droids.
Yeah. And then Ahsoka is, Anakin throws out some commands to focus all shields on the front. And then as soon as that happens, then the vulture droids show up, and they don't have rear shields on.
Right, because they're in hyperspace when Anakin's talking to R2 about fix this cannon, don't do this to that, leave the shields, we'll bring those up later, and there's definitely a point that is made where Ahsoka is like, "Hey, Master, don't you think that we need the rear shields? Aren't those going to be important?" And Anakin's like, "No, the guns are important." Yeah. And that comes back to bite him in the ass, of course.
Like, literally a moment later, it comes back to bite him in the ass. And then Ahsoka is
drop
like,
out of hyperspace.
Exactly. And Ahsoka is like, those rear shields would have been nice, And so, yeah, there was a very quick turnaround on that also occurred.
Yeah, I did kind of see a parallel, which Dave Filoni definitely could not have known, and I don't think Mr. J.J. Abrams would have been looking to the Clone Wars to make any type of parallels or references, but in The Force Awakens and in this episode, the gun's locked in the forward position. They have to do some fancy flying to orient the gun itself to destroy the target, which just knowing that that's in a future movie and being reminded of that watching this gave me a little smile, so I appreciated that.
No, that was good. But then later on, R2 takes over, yeah?
R2, I think R2's firing the cannon.
Okay.
So it's basically he's got his finger on the trigger and he's waiting for Anakin to say, "All right, buddy, now's the time,"
But then at one point, so the thing is stuck forward.
Uh-huh.
And then at some point, R2 does get it to turn around, right?
Okay.
That does occur. So then my question was, as Anakin's doing his flying and R2 fixes the gun to then finally turn around, because for a second they're unable to shoot what's behind them at all. R2 turns it around and then starts firing at the actual vulture droids that are headed towards them.
Right.
And it's like fully aiming and all that. My question is, how does R2 know what he's aiming at? Do you recall this at all?
Yeah, no, I do recall what you're talking about. You're talking about as far as targeting goes.
Yeah.
I don't think that I think it's we got the gun pointed in the correct direction. Let's shoot.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's it.
Just checking, because again, coming back to this theme that we've kind of talked about in the last few episodes about how both the Jedi and the droids kind of make weird, questionable decisions, and then other things just kind of happen magically, you know?
Yeah, this is definitely a targeting by convenience type of situation rather than execution by skill.
Yes, yeah. Okay. My other question too, as they're headed towards Tatooine, how long has it been since Anakin has left Tatooine? Because how far away removed from the end of that, from Attack of the Clones, are we here?
Right. So we did touch upon this. I think at the beginning of the new Padawan, where we were trying to figure out how far in between Geonosis and the Battle of Christophsis, how much time had passed between those two events, because the newsreel at the beginning of the Clone Wars movie says something to the effect of shortly after the Battle of Geonosis. All this shit's happening, and that's all we got. So I don't think we really locked down the timeline. I feel like we should be able to maybe find some sort of something closer to maybe even just by how many years have passed, if it has been years, which I don't know that it has.
Yeah, I think we're still closer on the Attack of the Clone side than we are Revenge of the Sith side.
Oh, absolutely. I'd say it's questionable how far we have to get through this series before we decide that it is closer to Revenge of the Sith. But I am... So this says, if you look at the Wikipedia page, it is 22 BBY is the timeline for the Clone Wars film. That being said...
Where's Attack of the Clones sit?
I think it's 23, but I'm not sure.
Is it?
Because it would be... 19 plus 3 plus 10? Is that the way it works?
That sounds right. Yeah. Yeah, 32 for episode 1.
So it's 22.
So they're all so we're all in the same year.
This is within a year.
So essentially Anakin had to go to Tatooine to try and save his mother. His mother dies in his arms. And then
within a year, he's back months, with a booger.
Yeah, he's back, and nobody's number one, nobody knew he went back really, right? Only Padme was there. None of the Jedi ever find out. Yeah,
Obi-Wan knew he was there because when he's searching for, he's trying to get Anakin to piggyback his message from Geonosis to Coruscant.
That's right. Yep.
And he says, well, his tracking, I can see his tracking signal, but he's on Tatooine. What in the blazes is he doing there?
Yeah.
My question is, what what is emanating his tracking signal? Did they just like leave the little explosive tracking slave device inside of him? They're like, all right, we'll just reprogram to Jedi, or are Jedi chipped? And if so...
Well, was it going by his ship, or...
But he wasn't on his ship.
But Padme's the one that picks up... But Padme's the one that picks up that signal, right?
No, R2... Obi-Wan sends a message and just puts it on, like, video voicemail. And then R2... comes out and plays it
and sees that it needs to be relayed one more time forward or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I got nothing. Is it like the Jedi version of like Find My Friends was turned on? Like,
yeah, or that. Yeah, I don't know.
Again, more random plot points, and we are now stretching outside that we are struggling with here, but. So, yeah, anyways, getting back to this, because this kind of also hits up the other point, like, now that we're in the last episode, it's kind of like we're wrapping up a lot of open discussions we had in the other episodes, the last 3 episodes.
Right.
And so this kind of brings up again that, like, if Anakin was able to get to Tatooine and attack the clones, leave, and then by this event heads back again... You know, like, Tatooine isn't as far out there as I imagined when, like, Luke describes it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, in A New Hope, where it's just, like, out there and...
Yeah, what kind of made me question that the most is really goes all the way back to episode 1. Because, so they leave, they being Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, Padme, the Handmaidens, Panaka... and so on. Leave on Padme's ship, and they get shot at, and R2 fixes the ship or whatever, and they get past the blockade, and then their hyperdrive's leaking, so they have to go someplace close. And like the closest planet is Tatooine, so you've got like one planet that is solidly in the Republic. Like, has representatives in the Senate, has a queen elected that can go to the galactic government and make bids for peace on the behalf of her planet, and then like the neighbor is as far away from the center of the galaxy as you can get.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
But they keep coming across it. Yeah.
Right.
You bring up a very good point. So now we just keep getting more and more piled on top of that.
Right. If it's close enough to limp to with no hyperdrive in like less than a day. Yeah. It's, I mean, I guess it's not in the same system, but it's like a neighboring system. I mean, what's...
I don't even know, because it's like saying you're driving from like Chicago to Denver, and then you're flat tire, like you get a flat tire, and then you have to make a stop in like North Dakota, like right, like
because that's like the closest place, or like Bismarck,
But then, is Tatooine still maybe like centrally located, where it's like the Kansas of it all, right? Like,
I guess. I mean, we did decide last episode that it is conveniently located in between any two major locations that you want to go.
So it's between New York and LA, but nobody really ever stops there, sort of situation. Like,
right, I think we said between New York and LA, and then also between like Seoul and Johannesburg. And
so,
it's I'm not real sure on that. I know the old EU had like a galactic map at the beginning of their books, but I don't know how accurate that is now. That and hyperspace actually work differently in the old expanded universe than it does in the film franchise, whereby in the Star Wars movies, hyperspace seems to be not instantaneous transportation, but not It's not like going on a road trip. You're not going to be in hyperspace for, days
and days.
Whereas in the EU, you could, if you were jumping from one side of the galaxy to the other, it might be 3 days that you were in hyperspace, and you're just chilling on your express train to whoever knows,
to not Tatooine,
Tatooine, right? Except
but
for
you will end up on Tatooine nonetheless.
You'll drive past it.
Yeah, you zoom past it. All right.
But again, like they're not using their hyperdrive in this situation that we were talking about from the Phantom Menace. Like they're on sublight technology.
Yeah, because they're only going from they were trying to go from Naboo to Coruscant, right? Is that what they were trying to go for?
That's originally where they were going, but their hyperdrive is leaking, so they. Am I misremembering this? Is it like they?
I'm trying to make sure
they could use it, but they could only use it for like a little bit, and they wouldn't have enough hyperspace juice to get to Coruscant, but they had enough hyperspace juice to get to Tatooine.
There was something else, because that was the whole reason they needed to get money from Watto, right? Because he wouldn't accept their credits to fix whatever it was broken. They needed parts or something like that.
Yeah.
So exactly. So they need to fix the hyperdrive completely, I think. Something was off. It's like, apparently it's like a ship's transmission or something. Or it's like the higher gears, right? Like,
right.
So I don't know. Anyways, back.
It's like the gear shift is stuck.
Yeah, it's stuck on 4th and it can't keep going higher. Like,
right. So I guess we should probably get back to Castle of Salvation. We've rounded out episodes 1, 2, and 3 of the film series, so we'll jump back into the 4th part of the animated movie. And so Ahsoka, Anakin, Rotta, R2-D2 are on their little junker ship, and they are not battling so well due to a couple of great decisions. Not fixing the rear deflector shields, putting R2 in charge of the main gun. So they get shot down, and as their ship is smoking and kind of falling toward the planet, they do make contact with Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he straight out calls Anakins Bluff and is like, "Oh, let me guess, you got shot down again. You need me to save your ass."
Yeah.
And Anakin's like, "Well, no." And Ahsoka like pops her head in and is like, "Yeah, of course."
That's pretty much exactly what happened. Yeah.
And there was like one little detail that I kind of liked about her literally popping her head in, because while you're watching it, Anakin is sitting in the pilot's seat, right? He's the one talking to Obi-Wan. And although we don't know exactly how the hologram transmission technologies work, because you don't really ever see where the recording camera is.
Yeah.
But she's in what would be the co-pilot seat, and she leans over to her left as if she's leaning over in front of where the camera would be so that she can get her face into the hologram. Sorry, I'm leaning away from my microphone as I'm doing that. So if my audio dropped out, that's why. But yeah, so she's. I thought it was a nice little touch that the animators took the time to have her lean over
and pop in. Because I will say, it's not until the prequel trilogy and in this series that I've noticed that you kind of do end up at times seeing the other perspective, right? Usually in the original trilogy, when you do see a transmission coming in, you always see it from just Darth's side, right? So you see whatever Imperial general he's talking to, and they always keep Eyeline, but you don't ever really know what that other side is looking at, right? So in this one, you do, I think we get a few times where Dooku is talking to Jabba, and then we see both sides of the conversation, right?
Right.
Or Ventress is talking to Dooku.
Right.
So what I found very interesting about seeing both sides now is because I've always wondered that about the Eyeline, right? So the weird example is especially in the Jedi Master room where they're all sitting in that circle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if there's like 3 people talking, then Yoda knows to look right and left at the same people in that same space, right?
Right.
But then from wherever he is, does that mean there's like a life-size replication of whatever's happening, right? Even though in this universe you can have it like in the palm of your hand, you know. So
I think it depends on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it's not like we see a recorder droid or a projection droid. Often it's like a single base.
Yeah.
Something that they can hold in their hand, or in the Phantom Menace, it's a walking spider chair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you don't... When it is the multiple people from the Jedi Council, when it's on Coruscant, their image is just projected conveniently into whatever chair they would have been sitting in.
Yeah.
But I feel like in Revenge of the Sith, when Yoda is on Kashyyyk,
mm-hmm.
Doesn't it show?
They show a little one. And so, like, that's what confuses me with Revenge of the Sith, because they show him looking around the room,
so
and then they cut to
Yoda's
his side.
Right, so what's Yoda looking at?
Chessboard.
Oh, he's looking at a little chessboard?
Yeah, he's essentially just looking at a little chessboard, but what doesn't make sense to me is that in the room, his glances are replicated in a 1-to-1 scale.
Right, as though he was actually in his chair.
Yeah, but then they definitely show him just standing, like, in one of the top, high tree huts, right? Just looking at a little thing.
Right.
So then that happens in this episode too, I think. At some point, Ventress and Dooku are talking to each other. And Ventress is definitely looking up at a full-scale Dooku, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a full-body Dooku being hologrammed in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking down at her.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they cut to Dooku's side, he's looking down at a little Palm Pilot
mm-hmm.
version of her.
Right.
So his eyeline is still working. So that was the one point I do remember that I made mental note of, because their eyelines there matched up, but in other cases it never really does. So that part. So sorry, we kind of got off here, but to me, Ahsoka leaning in, her image gets projected because she's cutting off eyeline between Obi-Wan and Anakin. Mm-hmm. So whatever technology is working knows to keep those two eyelines like locked in.
Okay.
But then when she leans in, it breaks that. So the hologram program is like, we don't know what this third thing is, but we're gonna throw it on,
Uh-huh.
So it's like when you use like a Snapchat filter that like puts like the dog ears on you, and then like another face shows up and it gets really confused, and the dog ear like jumps between the two faces, right?
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure you know all about that. So that's what I'm imagining, like, this weird technology is kind of doing it. Like, it's just getting really confused. Now, what then confuses me even more now is if we jump forward 40 years to Last Jedi, then we have, like, Maz Kanata
mm-hmm.
running around a room, and it replicates part of the room behind her, too.
Yeah. Well, so that was like a message that she left, right?
Yeah.
So I was imagining that was her like recording.
No, but they were talking to her though, because at some point Poe Dameron does ask her a question.
Okay.
So it was a live transmission. Yeah, sorry, that was a live transmission because Poe Dameron did ask something, and then she was like, "Well, if you want the best lockpicker, this is the guy you got to go get."
Right.
You have to go to Canto Bight. It's a dude with this lapel, Like, are you in or not?
And when you see him and he walks away, just go find somebody else anyway. That'll work.
Yeah, exactly. Just find anybody. Just find a dude. So, but yeah, so anyways, we're getting off again here, but talking into the weeds of things. But to follow up on your point, I also agreed that it was interesting seeing Ahsoka's head pop in, and then Obi-Wan is like, "Oh, okay, wait, what?" Like,
right?
Yeah.
So then they crash.
Yes.
And they got a
Nobody
long
dies
walk to where they need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And R2 beeps and boops in protest, and Ahsoka says something like, "What? It's just an endless expanse of gritty sand," or some shit like that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that was a callback to the "I hate sand. It's coarse, irritating, and gets everywhere." But whatever.
Yeah.
And she offers to give him like an oil bath whenever all this is said and done.
Mm-hmm.
So he rockets off of the ship and lands on the ground, and then they go on a walk, and Anakin and Ahsoka have a couple of talks, and she's trying to pry into his past, and brings up a quote from Yoda that I can't remember because I didn't write it down. And so we're back to the situation where we've got plot A, plot B going on.
Yeah.
Like we did back in The Hidden Enemy.
Yeah.
So this is plot A, I guess. Anakin and Ahsoka trying to get Rotta back to his daddy. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be introduced to plot B. We jump back to Coruscant, and Yoda is there talking to Sheev. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And I don't know what they're talking about specifically. It didn't stand out enough for me to write anything down about that. But
I did, because I had a question about it. I mean, not a question, but as you just kind of said it, there's just like nonsense conversation going on that serves no direct purpose to this story at hand.
Right.
Where Palpatine is like talking about like new security on Naboo, and we get like this long little monologue about like new security measures, and Yoda is just sitting there like, "Okay, dude, I mean, like, yeah, we're a Jedi army and we're being stretched a little thin here, but yeah, sure, great, new security." And then Obi-Wan at some point then hops in with a message, right? Or that's right before, right? Because Obi-Wan has a message to Anakin and then turns around and has another message to Yoda. Okay. Right. Where then Obi-Wan tells Yoda and Palpatine that he thinks Dooku has tried to deceive Jabba.
Right.
And then that transmission ends, and then they go on to this talk about security. And that's where I got lost with you. But then they finally turn that conversation into, well, like, Padme is going to go to Tatooine to sign a treaty with the Hutts.
Yeah, because Padme shows up at the Chancellor's office.
Yeah.
And they're all like, "Hey, Padme, how you doing?" And she says, like, "I don't know, I think things are going well. Like, how's the war going?" Yeah. And Sheev is like, "Oh, it's all right, except for there's this one dramatic thing that's happening, and Anakin's there." Yeah. And she's like, "Oh no, Anakin! Like, what can I do to? Because everybody needs to save Anakin." And and all this nonsense. And Sheev says, that's when Sheev brings up like this treaty. Was that a thing at the beginning of the movie and I just forgot about it because it was like a month ago?
No, that was.
Or is this like the first time?
It's only brought up now. So like I don't know why this is the plan now. Like again, because the original plan or the original thing is just that Rotta has been kidnapped and they just need to save him. And they're just hoping that by saving him it would just get the Jedi on his good graces to not shoot down ships when they cross by Tatooine, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. And then out of nowhere, they're like, well, why don't we just sign a treaty with this dude? Like, why wasn't that just another thought in addition to saving Rotta? Like, yeah, save Rotta. Yeah, like, save his son. But also, like, as far as I know, Jabba's just a smuggler. He doesn't hold, like, any political power, right?
No, he's like a mafia boss.
Yeah. But surely there are other Hutts that do. So then why do we need to go through Jabba for all of this? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
because he is the head of the Jillik Hutt family. So he's in like the hierarchy of Hutts.
Yeah.
I don't know that any of them are actually on the up and up and like involved in politics and in a legit way.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be all behind the scenes people, and he's like the Don. You know what I mean?
So it's still is important nonetheless to just
right.
gain his.
And they're like, we know
approval.
this dude's a criminal and all this shit, and we need. His son got kidnapped, and if we help him, then he, you know, he'll be on our side instead of being on the other side, helping the bad dudes. So I think that's it, and maybe it just maybe this whole treaty thing was like part of it all along, but they knew that they needed to get Rotta to sign the treaty, but it definitely was.
Much.
But it definitely was not specifically stated or brought up anything about a treaty until
just in this last section.
Right, until minute 118 of 134.
Yeah.
But that's not even the biggest thing that just gets kind of brought up out of nowhere. So Padme's there, decides that she's going to help. So she's like, oh, wait, Jabba's uncle is here on Coruscant.
Yeah.
I'll go talk to him. Maybe because I'm in the Senate, I can talk to him and convince him to contact Jabba and convince Jabba to sign the treaty. So it's like a three-way, convince a person to convince somebody else to do something.
Yeah.
And so she gets in her ship, and I don't know if you noticed, but she doesn't take like her car. She doesn't take like a little speeder or anything. She takes her full-blown fucking chromed out, dual engine, shiny Winnebago to drive across town to go to what is basically a strip club.
Yeah, the seedy side of Coruscant, I guess, right?
Right. And then she flies in, and the music kicks in, and the music just fucking kicks ass. And it's I don't even know how to describe it, but
then so we get introduced to Zero, who does speak Galactic Basic and not the Huttese language.
Correct, and he's all flourished with like these glow-in-the-dark tattoos, and
he has Truman Capote's accent, which is an interesting touch.
Right.
I don't know how I feel about I don't know how to say this, but just a queened out gentleman,
right?
Running a strip club in Coruscant, you know?
Right. I actually like Zero the Hutt's character. I find it questionable that we're 7/8 of the way through a movie, and this character is just being introduced, and this is a fault of this movie being comprised of 4 different episodes. And
the episode structure,
remind me to give you a little bit more opinion on that when we give our final opinions here during our wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
But questions I've had so far in this episode are like, how did Yoda get back so quick? Yoda just seems to be like popping all over the galaxy to be wherever he needs to be conveniently.
Yeah.
And, you know,
he's small and compact.
Yeah, but still, I mean, you don't travel through hyperspace faster if you're small. You travel through hyperspace faster if you're like an information data wave. Which doesn't make... Yeah, well, I mean, think about it. Like, all the holo transmissions and everything are instantaneous.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But for actual matter to travel there is some sort of time delay.
Interesting. I did not think about that point.
But it's the same way in the movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've never explicitly thought about that.
Right.
But are all these points just maybe all near each other for the purposes of this single movie, like Christophsis and Tatooine, and or not Tatooine? He shows up later, jumping ahead, but and Coruscant is what I meant to say. Yeah, maybe
I have no idea.
Yeah, we got to move on from that one. Otherwise, we got
Christophsis has. I think Christophsis is out near. I don't know if it's in the Outer Rim or like near the unknown regions or something, but it's not in the core for sure.
Yeah,
because that's why they're going out. That's why Anakin and Obi-Wan are going out there, because it's like a strategic. We decided it was like a strategic battle placement. Otherwise, it would not be worth anything.
Dropping off the armory and
right or
supplies
something
for the citizens and stuff. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So at Zero's Palace, and that's literally what it's called, Zero's Palace. He's got all these neons on the outside of the building that say Zero's Palace, and
it's essentially like literally Jabba's palace just plopped in Coruscant, right?
Right, on, like the 748th floor or something like that.
Yeah, it's like literally the exact same design. So
yep. And there is a Biff band playing there.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought may have been Figurin Dan and the Modal Nodes from the Cantina in Episode 4.
A New Hope, yeah.
In A New Hope, but it's not.
Did you find out who it was?
No, I didn't find out who it was. I just found out that it wasn't.
Yeah, that's so we have an uncredited band playing on Coruscant.
Correct. But also one thing I wanted to say is like the music that is playing to the viewer when Padme shows up is like the first example that I can think of diegetic music in the Star Wars universe, because she goes, well, I guess not, because we're talking about a band that was playing in a bar in another movie. But it's the first time it happens in the Clone Wars. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Because Padme comes in and the band is playing that music that you're hearing when she arrives. And then there's basically like a record scratch when she starts talking to Zero, and some other bullshit happens and she gets quote unquote thrown out, and that is basically just taken by a droid. She gets taken by a droid and kind of put in captivity, and then I think at that point we jump back to Dooku on Tatooine, right?
Yeah. So what I have, I'm going to read you my notes because it's
okay.
So Padme attacks a droid, and then what I wrote is that she's thwarted by her cape. So again, the rule: no capes. Capes fuck you up.
No, she got loose of the cape.
But then she would have gotten away if the cape didn't stop her that little bit, right? Like,
so I thought that what's going on is that Zero's like, no, I'm gonna capture you, or no, Zero's like, all right, leave, and they throw her out, and then she's in like some weird, just like rebar elevator.
Yeah.
And then hops out and runs back over to where Zero is. And the droid grabs her cape, and the cape rips free, and she keeps on going. And then she's like hiding, and she sees Zero talking to Dooku. And Zero's like and
that's when he reveals that he's in with Dooku, basically, right?
Yeah, he says, oh, Jabba's gonna fucking kill me if he finds out that I'm really the one that planned to have his son kidnapped.
His son taken, yeah.
So this plan has just got like one more level worth of fucking convoluted.
Yeah.
Because we had Ventress kidnap Rotta, then give Rotta to some pirates that would take the fall for him. Then she killed the bounty hunters that came looking for the people that didn't actually kidnap Rotta, but she set up to be kidnapped. Then she took Rotta and just dropped him off somewhere and left and did some other shit for Anakin to pick Rotta up for her to videotape to send back to Jabba so that Jabba thought that it was really Anakin. And then she's got to either kidnap Rotta back or kill Rotta and set up Anakin for Rotta's death at the same time that Zero is also in on this plan, but Jabba doesn't know about it, and we don't even hear about him until like the plan is 87.5% complete. And all of this is supposed to just go off without a hitch and run nice and smoothly. Like it would have been easier to fucking kidnap Rotta, kill Rotta, put Rotta in a box, and then trick Anakin into delivering this box to Jabba as like, hey, I want you to sign this treaty that we could have told you about an hour ago in this movie. We brought you a gift. Jabba opens up the fucking box. Boom.
Yeah. So, having said all that, Dooku's gain is for the same shipping lanes, or is it just to not let the Jedi have those shipping lanes?
It's to keep Jabba from being okay with the Republic. Dooku wants to keep Jabba in his good graces as opposed to Jabba being in good graces with the Republic.
Okay. That, I guess, makes some sense. But yeah, it is a lot of unnecessary steps to get to that point. Like, I got nothing for you there, because it's so much at this point. And now that Padme's involved too, none of this is really that clear, and especially by this point of the movie.
Right.
We've had so many steps and arcs that have mildly wrapped up and moved on, and
they just kind of play out a little bit and then just kind of fizzle, and you don't hear about them anymore.
Yeah, and it's the next thing, like, oh, more droids, like,
right. Now there's somebody else that's involved with this. One note I did make about we were talking about holograms earlier. Mm-hmm. Dooku's eyes are like brown in this hologram instead of like usually like everything's blue, but like his eyes in the hologram itself are like a brownish tan color, which I thought was interesting.
I don't think I picked that up. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that made me think like, what color are Dooku's eyes anyway? Like, are they like the Sith yellow red color, or
his eyes never got to that point? Not at least shown in the films.
Right.
They definitely just kept Christopher Lee's eye color, whatever they were. Like,
which
he still had the whites. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like super dark and demented.
Yeah. But yeah, no. Only a few people get the Sithy yellow eyes, yeah? Like, Anakin's one. We get Palpatine.
And Darth Maul.
Yeah. But we never...
Yeah.
Who never gets there, yeah.
I think it wasn't up until Anakin's eyes turn that it actually meant anything, because Darth Maul was a fucking black and red alien.
Yeah, so we weren't sure what that was caused by anyways. Like,
right, and the Emperor, way back in the day, was like a super fucking old dude.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe his eyes were just old and crusty, you know?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But it was when Anakin became Darth Vader that his eyes turned to that Sith yellow, orange, red color.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's when that was designated as being significant.
Yeah.
Before that it wasn't.
And then by the next time we do see his eyes, they definitely revert back at the end of Return of the Jedi. So we know that's not a permanent feature either, you know.
Yeah. Well, I guess that would be, you know, after his redemption or after he comes back to the light side, his eyes turn blue again?
Back to his blue. Yeah, I think they were blue again.
His eyebrows grow in nice and bushy real quick like.
Yeah, still again a crusty old white guy. It's all good. Yeah.
Right. So we are back on Tatooine because in this little hologram interaction that Padme witnesses, we switch back over to Tatooine and run with Plot A for a little bit. So what happens is that...
So Dooku shows up.
And I know that at some point in time, Anakin and Ahsoka split up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that now or is that later?
I think that's about now. I didn't take specific notes on that, but because Dooku and Anakin get in a fight, and I think that's when they kind of get split up because then some droids start getting on Ahsoka.
Right.
And then Ahsoka... They both kind of like individually run away.
Yeah, I don't remember. There's a catalyst to make Anakin decide this section of the plan, and that is to split up. And he gives Ahsoka like that whole speech of, "You may not understand right now, but this is super important. Just trust me and run with it."
Mm-hmm.
And then you just see him by himself, and Dooku comes up, and they begin to lightsaber duel. So my question was, how many times do Anakin and Dooku fight between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah.
Because the way it's set up in the live-action films is that they fight in Attack of the Clones, and Dooku fucking cuts Anakin's arm off, and... defeats him because Anakin is young and naive and maybe a good swordsman, but doesn't have the training or the patience to
have some strategy in any
form.
Yeah,
or strategy in general. And so then in Revenge of the Sith, again, Anakin and Obi walk in to fight Dooku.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan's like, we'll take him together, and Anakin's like, I was about to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dooku makes the comment. Dooku makes some comment about the last time that they fought, and Anakin says, my powers have doubled since last we dueled or whatever.
Yeah.
So, in the movies, obviously, it's a reference to Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
But this is like the second or third time that he's fought Dooku in the Clone Wars already? No?
Something.
Is it just
like
the first?
That. I don't... Actually, this would be the first because the only things prior are Christophsis. Dooku doesn't...
Right.
Really fit
you're correct.
Christophsis, yeah.
And
so this would be the first, yeah.
Dooku even says your training has come a long way, boy.
Yeah. That was the note I had was like during their fight, Dooku definitely has a lot of monologuing that goes on.
Right.
Like, how can you keep that much mind power to monologuing when a dude is waving a lightsaber in your face to kill you, right? That was my one thing. Like, the fight was so stilted and the monologue kept cutting in that it just ruined any excitement just from a viewer, right?
Yep.
Like, I had no excitement watching this because Dooku wouldn't stop talking.
My note was completely the opposite of that, and I said that their lightsabers should leave little glass scars when they hit the sand.
That's interesting. That is a good point. It should, yeah.
Like, every time a
Really
lightsaber just, like,
crystallize all the
strikes
sand,
through the
right?
sand, it should make this little glass
should
star.
crystallize all, yeah, absolutely.
I think that would be awesome. So they're fighting, and give me just a second, because I gotta look through this and make sure that we're in the right spot here.
Well,
we gotta be though. So this would be the part where Dooku cuts through the backpack that Anakin's wearing.
Yes,
and says something like, "Your plan has failed, boy." Right?
Yeah.
And Anakin's like, "Ha ha! I tricked you with some rocks."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
because
literally a backpack full of rocks.
Which is interesting because he's been lugging around this backpack full of rocks that is physically going to be taxing on him, slow him down, tire him out. But I guess it's to sell that ploy that there's actually some weight in the backpack.
Yeah. Because then how heavy is Rotta then, right?
He can't be that heavy. I mean, Ahsoka's arms are like pencils.
Yeah. So... No, I had that same thought. But I was wondering maybe it was like one decent little rock that when...
It's at least two.
Well, is that before or after Dooku splits through it?
I think Dooku splits through like 2 stones. And you see like 3... I think you see 3 pieces. 3 or 4 pieces. So...
yeah. Maybe Anakin just took whatever rock he could find on a sandy planet. Yeah, why didn't he just fill it with some sand? Like...
Right. Like a warm bag of sand.
Oh, boy. No. We're going to stray too far from the light year. We get down that
path. So after this rock shenanigan, we've got what all I wrote down was more holocron. Not holocron. That's a different thing. Holocom convenience. And then we are back on Coruscant, back at Zero's place, and I don't know if you caught it, but so there's like this archway outside of Zero's.
No, I don't think I did.
It is the same archway that is outside of Unkar Plutt's place.
Ah, yeah.
That gets blown up in Force Awakens. And that archway appears somewhere else. I think it was in...
it's a Ralph McQuarrie original
it was
concept art thingy, right?
Right. For like an entryway into the driveway of Jabba's palace.
Yeah. So there was kind of...
It was taken... J.J. Abrams took it from that and put it in The Force Awakens. But Dave Filoni's design team also took it and had already taken it and put it at Zero's palace.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that at all. Yeah.
So I thought
makes sense though. Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting.
So the following note I have is that we go back to the B plot.
Yep, we're on plot B.
Yeah, so Padme is captured, and then what I have is that while she's captured, the droids, the battle droids, are going through her things, and one of them is, again, I don't understand how this war is a thing that lasts years, because one of the droids picks up her freaking comms, which looks like every other comm, and goes, "What's this?" Turns it on.
Yeah, he doesn't even actually pick it up. Like, she has like 2 things: her blaster and her comm, and that's it. And they like dump it out on a table, and it's like flashing, like she had it on silent or something. And it's like beeping. It's like illuminating, and she totally does the lame-o fucking trick where she's like, "Oh, don't touch that. Whatever you do, it's really dangerous. Like, keep away." And he's like, "Well, I better check." And presses the button, and then up pops C-3PO.
Yeah.
Hence the more holocom convenience.
Yes, exactly. So that then reveals to C-3PO that Padme's in trouble and sends out a bunch of clones to go rescue her. Yeah.
Right, and that's the next section of the movie that we get to, and it's fucking hilarious when it happens because you hear like a kerfuffle and like a guard got knocked out at the front door or something, and then C-3PO just like pokes his head around the door jamb and it's like, "Hi, I'm C-3PO. I'm looking for Padme." And then there's some Magna droids or some battle droids inside, right? Mm-hmm. Well, in walk like six fucking clone troopers, and they fire off like 25 fucking shots and don't hit a damn thing. Yeah. Like, I think I counted them, and it takes 6 of them. Let's see, clones can't hit shit. 6 of them bust into Zero's place and fire off about 25 shots, missing 6 droids and Zero, who is the size of a fucking Volkswagen bus. Another 30 shots or so to get just 5 of these battle droids. So, like, it literally took 6 clone troopers walking into an enclosed space.
Yeah.
Like 60 shots to kill 5 of these fucking.
Yeah. And in the middle of that, like, Zero is running, right? Because I had another note, too. So Zero runs across the room.
Right.
Because he has, like, this, like, and then, like, he runs across. Now, visually,
he's like Gary the Snail.
Yeah, well, yeah, but then they still show him, like, bouncing a little bit like a bipedal animal would run.
Okay. I didn't catch that. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's what I noted. Like, because my note is, can Hutts run? Like, what is the actual mechanic that's happening here? So, like,
apparently,
are we assuming they're slug-like?
Mm.
Right. But then why is Zero bouncing as if there were, like, 2 little legs under there, right? Like, is he, like, a dolphin that has, like, 2 fused legs that, like, got nubbed together? You know, like...
I think it's, like, a giant slug. Like, do they have some type of internal bone structure? I mean, they have arms.
They have arms.
Right.
And, like, a mouth and a
right,
head
so
with 2 eyes.
They've got to have some sort of working mandibles.
Yeah.
You know?
So...
I don't know if they have, like, a spine. Maybe?
Yeah,
I don't know, it's weird, because when you see Jabba in Return of the Jedi,
mm-hmm.
he's laying down. Like, he's not just... Like, they're sitting or standing is kind of like if you laid on the ground and then kept your hips down and pushed your torso up.
Yeah.
Is their resting position, but even so in Return of the Jedi, Jabba's like laying on his side.
Mm-hmm.
If you were like laying on your hip and propped your torso up that way.
Yeah.
He also has a different number of fingers. In Return of the Jedi, he's only got 3.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's got 4.
I don't think I've ever noticed that whatsoever.
And it's this, like, in Return of the Jedi, he's got 3. And then in every iteration after that, be it the special edition, the Blu-ray rework of A New Hope, in The Phantom Menace, or, like, the DVD re-release of The Phantom Menace, he's got 4 fingers. So Hutts went from 3 back in 77 to having 4 every other time after that.
Zero has 4 then?
Zero has 4.
Yeah. I have never, ever picked that up. So that is interesting. Yeah, so, but because of any finger situation, they have to have something under there, yeah? Like...
Yeah, so they've got to have some sort of...
structure base.
Right.
Even if it's like a... yeah, they don't have an exoskeleton. That part's obvious, you know, like...
Right, but that's where my question came from, is how would their spine work? Are they like a snake that just has like a million ribs that like go all the way down? Because they have to have something that keeps them upright.
Yeah. So...
And it's not just blubber.
Yeah, but then at what point, like, how is Jabba able to bend that way with that tail that extrudes out behind him, right?
Right.
And then, like, when Han steps on it, like...
Right.
What... Yeah, what is the underlying structure that causes...
In which cases, there's some sort of pelvis or hip functioning thing that is midway... it's below the abdomen area, but kind of in that what would be the corner if Jabba was like L-shaped.
I'm gonna say he's more snake-like, right? Because like a snake can kind of slither all ways.
Yes, but they also like they can stand up. But if a snake is 2 feet long, it can't stand up 18 inches tall. It can't have 6 inches on the floor and 18 inches sticking up in the air.
That is true.
I'm making this as a declarative statement as though I am a herpetologist.
Yes. Nope. It makes sense to me. So I got nothing further on that for you. Because again, just going back, because seeing him move around in both Episode 1 and then the special editions of New Hope, he's definitely slithering around a little bit, right?
Yes, he definitely does have a slithery nature.
Like it's not a side-to-side slither the way a snake does, but more of like a rolling slither where like the front part of his belly fold kind of scoots up and then everything else kind of follows along with that, right?
Mm-hmm. It's like he's got the skeletal structure of a snake, but he moves like a slug.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
So maybe he's like a slug with an internal skeleton.
Yeah. Which still doesn't really answer how Zero is running. Like,
no, he runs like Gary the Snail does, man.
But I got nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it was just like a weird thing that stuck out to me that in this madhouse of everything that was happening. So like all the clones shooting at literally nothing, and this giant, massive Hutt is making his way across. You think somebody would have hit him because the dude is massive,
right?
And he's like the shiniest thing in the room.
They don't fucking hit anything.
Yeah,
it's comical. Not to make another, well, I guess absolutely to make another SpongeBob reference, but
yeah,
you've seen SpongeBob before, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So we've decided that Zero runs like Gary the Snail, and these battle droids and clone troopers fight each other like Patrick and SpongeBob do, where it's like a big ball of dust, and you see like fists flailing and moving all over the place, and there's a bunch of aggressive noises, but nobody's actually hitting anybody or anything. Nothing's actually happening.
No.
So from that point, we move forward basically to the end of this subplot B and kind of jump back to plot A.
Yeah.
And in this, as you mentioned earlier, Ahsoka is fighting some droids. She's fighting some Magna droids, which are the droid line specifically designed to fight Jedi. And they use those... Are they called Force Pikes? Or not? Because... So, I know that Royal Guards carried a thing called a Force Pike, and it was like a big staff that I guess could deflect a lightsaber blow. And these baton things with like blacklight incandescent light bulbs on the end of them that the Magna droids carry around definitely can deflect lightsaber strikes, but maybe it's just called something else.
Yeah, so, that I don't know if they're the exact same, but I noticed that too, that they were definitely holding off lightsabers, like they were no big thing, you know.
Right.
But yeah, whether or not they're exact same, I'm not sure for you there.
So Ahsoka has Rotta, and R2 is with her as well, right? Yes. And Anakin gets away from Dooku because Dooku cut his rocks in half.
Yeah.
And takes off and is trying to race back to
The palace.
back to Jabba's palace.
Yeah.
Dooku took like a speeder, right? Or some shit, or like his little
hopped on his little bike thingy.
speeder chopper.
Yeah.
And goes back to talk to Jabba. I think that I don't remember if there's like another interaction with Ventress and Dooku here, or if Dooku just straight goes in and says, like, I found out what happened. Anakin fucking actually killed Rotta, and he's coming here. He specifically tells Jabba he's coming here to finish off the Hutts and kill you as well, which implies that like the Hutt family is small, like two people. But we already know that Jabba's got an uncle, and back when we're first introduced to Zero, there's this funny ass fucking droid named Kronos 327. That's like a bounty hunter droid or some shit.
Yeah.
And Kronos 327 and Zero have a kind of comical exchange back and forth, but what Kronos 327 calls Zero is like the great and almighty Zero, master. What's he say? Master of the Hutt clan on 7 systems.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So,
because he gets Zero jumping back. Zero gets introduced as like, or the droids refer to him as Your Majesty, right?
Yeah, like he's a super important dude.
Yeah,
not just like a guy that owns a fucking strip club
in Coruscant. Yeah,
right.
So I agree. Like,
and it sounds like Jabba is more important than Zero is.
Yeah.
And so the whole Hutt slug family tree is bigger than just these 3 guys, but then
because also in like in episode 1 we see that there are like Huttese women.
Yes.
So and by virtue of Jabba having at least one son, like
yes,
they're procreating, you know, like
yeah. So is that like are they sexual beasts? Are they asexual? Like was there some type of odd mating that needed to happen?
We're gonna get back into that, aren't we? No,
of course we are. Does the Clone Wars imply? Does the Clone Wars imply that that Jabba and Gardula mated and Rotta is their offspring?
Like that's what I got out of it. Like some physical biological interaction had to happen, and then out pops a Rotta. Right?
Weird.
So
that is weird.
I mean,
what's even weirder is that in the old EU, Hutts were hermaphroditic because they are the resources required to sustain one live Hutt were great enough that Hutts, even on their native planet, did not live like in groups. They didn't live with other Hutts. So to come across another Hutt would have been more of a rare event. So that way, to increase the mating potential compatibility, any Hutt could mate with another Hutt.
Yeah, everybody just had all parts considered, like
correct, and their gender was essentially decided as how they presented themselves. Some presented themselves in more of a male fashion, some in more of a female fashion, but in extreme circumstances they could actually reproduce asexually, where they, I guess, I don't know if they impregnated themselves or if they just kind of developed like a clone embryo within them that gestated and became a separate living Hutt. So there's that.
Yeah. Well, I got, as of current canon, I got nothing for you there. But all I know, in episode 1, we have the appearance of Hutt women. So,
yep.
Just on that. That's all I got. It's like, again, it's also one of those other things you have to think about where all the Hutts are essentially just wandering around naked. So,
yeah,
whatever organs they got, Chewbacca,
At least he has fur.
So is his fur just covering up his like giant Wookiee dong? Then is that what's happening? Like,
maybe it's like a great apes where it's like an internal thing until it's needed, and then
or like a dog where it's just
yeah,
the lipstick comes out. Like,
I guess
I don't.
But I can imagine if you were a Hutt and that happened, it'd probably slow you down.
Because you're just dragging it along the ground, right?
Like an anchor.
Yeah. Like you get snagged on stuff, essentially. Like
probably.
Anyway, so moving on. Anakin gets there right after Dooku yells at Jabba that Anakin's trying to finish the job, right?
Right.
Anakin comes in, and then they all freak out. And then the next thing I found interesting is that to protect himself, Anakin ignites his lightsaber and sticks it on Jabba, right?
Well, so in the beginning, he shows up at the door, and then the droid's like, hey, hand your lightsaber over.
Yeah.
And then you can go inside and talk to Jabba.
Mm-hmm.
And Anakin's like, all right, fuck it. Hands it over.
Yeah.
Which he's got like this cool little clip on his belt for his lightsaber, which I thought was kind of awesome. So then he goes inside, and he's like, yo, it's Anakin.
Yeah.
I'm here. And Jabba's like, where's my son? He was like, what? He's not here?
Ahsoka's not here yet? Yeah.
Yeah. So Dooku's like, ha 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 ha. Like, I set you up and you fell for it, sucker.
Yeah.
So then
Jabba is in turn believing Dooku's story because Anakin shows up without the goods, essentially.
Right. And then Force grabs his lightsaber and holds it on Jabba, thus reinforcing Dooku's lie of he killed Rotta and came to kill you.
Yeah.
So then
what I think is funny real quick is that Anakin then kind of makes a declaration. I don't remember the exact words, but he was like, no, our goal is to negotiate. But he's saying that with an ignited weapon. Like
aggressive negotiation. Aggressive
yeah.
negotiation. I'm trying that one again.
So I just always I found that point interesting that he's just like, no, we're the peacekeepers, said as weapon is in hand,
Right.
So anyways, continuing on.
Yeah, so we're real close to wrapping this thing up, and so Anakin is holding Jabba at lightsaber's edge, and then we cut to outside, and Ahsoka's struggle with these Magna droids, and she eventually triumphs, which good for her because there was like, I don't know, 4 of them or something like that, and she took them out as a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
While carrying Rotta around.
A tiny Hutt, yeah.
Yeah, so good for her. So she comes in, hands over Rotta. Jabba's super happy, figures out that Dooku lied. Dooku fucking takes off, and Jabba decides that he's going to sign the treaty. And in the midst of all of this, Padme, or Zero, like, radios in, holograms in to Jabba, and then turns that transmission over to Padme, and Padme's like, yo, this is what's going on. Like, Zero will tell you that he fucking set this whole thing up. Like, he betrayed you. It wasn't Anakin. Like, ooh, swoon, yay, Anakin, and all that jazz. And everything is wrapped up nice and tidy, and Rota's all good. Jabba lets them use his
supply route.
Yeah, he gives them like the password to the back alley to take the shortcut or whatever. Dooku gets away. Ahsoka learned some shit about being a Jedi, and lo and behold, Obi-Wan and Yoda fucking show up on Tatooine.
Yep.
Because that's what happens, is you gotta have Yoda and Obi-Wan, like, show up.
Just all there.
To wrap up the end of the story. Mm-hmm. So, that's it. That is the Clone Wars movie.
Yeah.
Stretched out over 4 weeks. So, do you want to give your breakdown of this episode? Not your breakdown, but give your opinion. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down on this episode, and then we'll talk about the movie as a whole.
Yeah. So on this episode, I'm still negative about the whole thing, right? So
haven't turned you yet.
No, not on this one, especially not on this one. Again, there's so many. You brought it up earlier. There are so many convoluted points to just even this section,
right?
So then, kind of spinning that into my opinion of the whole thing, breaking this up into 4 weeks kind of made the movie. I already didn't like the movie the first time I saw it,
right?
A few years back. Breaking it up, I was hoping I would kind of appreciate each episode on their own, but it only kind of reinforced how messy this is as one singular unit.
Right.
And especially now being this far along, 4 weeks in, and then realizing, Jesus fucking Christ, we're still talking about the Clone Wars movie, right? Like,
yep.
Like, there's so much happening, and yet I feel like I got next to nothing out of it, right?
Yeah, so I actually gave this episode a thumbs up because I feel if it was just this 22-minute section, and I think if it was its own episode, it would not have this extra
just baggage.
Yeah, some of the it wouldn't have some of the Anakin stuff that I like. Zero the Hutt. I think he's a great character. It was a bold move to throw this guy in the way that he was portrayed. Mm-hmm. I like the 60s noir, like jazzy, sexy tone that they had going on when they jet across over to his palace. Like, I thought that was nice. If it was its own episode, it would have worked better.
Yeah.
But overall, looking at it through that perspective, I'm giving it a thumbs up. Mm-hmm. Now, as for the movie as a whole, I can't say the same.
Yeah.
Breaking it up and really trying to isolate like where each story fell hurt this project.
Yeah.
It did not do anything good for the Clone Wars together as a whole.
And we're talking about like an entire piece that's only 94 minutes, right?
Right.
So it's not that long.
No,
and
it's
yet,
not.
when you have these 4 episodes together, you feel the separation of the episodes and how each of them kind of closes out a little, just enough for you to be like, okay, we're wrapping up. Oh no, there's still another 20 minutes. Okay, we're wrapping up. Okay, nope, 20 minutes. Okay, 20 more minutes. Wait, what? Like,
there's too much stuff stitched in together. If I do feel like if it was properly broken into 4 different stories over 4 different episodes throughout the season, it would have worked better.
Yeah.
But you've got the first section, which is the new Padawan, and this is essentially like wrapping up the Christophsis thing. Mm-hmm. And then it's overlapping with the beginning of this Anakin gets a Padawan thing.
Yeah.
Which is, these are 2 separate things that could have easily been kept separate.
Yeah.
The first part of Christophsis with Cat and Mouse, and the last part of Christophsis with the beginning of the new Padawan were unnecessary. Mm-hmm. That being said, if there wasn't that battle of Christophsis at the beginning of this movie, then Hidden Enemy would also be unnecessary.
Yeah.
So, Hidden Enemy and the beginning section on Christophsis at the beginning of this movie work well together. We've got this overlap of Ahsoka, and Ahsoka doesn't really fit into either the Christophsis part of this movie or the section of the movie that is the kidnapping and return of Rotta the Hutt. So that's my opinion of kind of her being included.
Yeah.
So then you've got the Rotta the Hutt section, which is ostensibly like the last 3/4 of the movie. Mm-hmm. One, why are we like 25% in? We had to like wrap up this other story before we get to like the main story.
Yeah.
Then the last third of that, we're introduced to this other guy, Zero the Hutt, who may or may not be a compelling character, but he doesn't have a place in this movie.
No.
So, book ending with like these not necessary things in what is supposed to be the launch of this new segment of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because at this time, like, the live action shit was over. Yeah. Everybody knew that there was some animated stuff coming, and they put this movie out. And I know that in previous episodes, I told you how much I liked it, and I did then.
Yeah.
Coming back to it now, I can see... I'm surprised that this section of storytelling was able to launch a 6-season successful franchise, and that it did as well as it did.
And again, too, taking the movie as a whole, again, my judgment of it has to shift. I think I would have been a lot more forgiving if this just aired as like a premiere event on Cartoon Network, right?
Right.
Like, hey, these definitely were 4 episodes, but we're going to just air them all as the pilot, the 90-minute, or like it would have been 2 hours on television, right? Pilot of Clone Wars from 8 to 10. Big old Star Wars event.
Right.
In September 2008, right?
Yeah, and they actually did that in later seasons where, like, the season finale would be, like, a double episode, or the season premiere would be, like, a double episode.
Yeah.
And in some cases, I think there's 1 or 2 other story arcs here that are, like, 3 episodes long. So we're only talking about a difference of, like, 22 minutes.
Yeah.
And this fucking 4-piece section of, I mean, even just like the episode titles, it's the new Padawan, Castle of Deception, Castle of Doom, Castle of Salvation. Mm-hmm. Like I said a few episodes ago, one of these is not like the other.
Yeah.
It suffers from trying to be 2 things at once, and it was 4 stories that they put together. They would have either benefited better from being 4 separate stories, mm-hmm. or from being 1 story.
Or just scrapping these 4 episodes as the introduction and reworking them a lot more than they did. Right.
The production code for New Padawan was actually like 118, so this would have fallen toward the end of the season.
Yeah.
Castle of Deception, Castle of Doom, Castle of Salvation were 101, 103, and 104. Mm-hmm. So... Those were designed to be the intro to the Clone Wars. And then I think it was George Lucas said, no, we need to introduce this Padawan. We're doing this, we're going to make it a movie. We got to put this Padawan in at the beginning. I want people to get to know this person. So I think at that point what they should have done is they should have taken the new Padawan and they should have made that a single movie and just kept the castle trilogy plotline for some other shit. Like, that's fine.
Television arc. Yeah, as a, like multi-episode arcs are fine. That's great. And then...
But it doesn't work when you take a multi-episode arc and you turn it into what is supposed to be a single story.
Into a single story that you are then putting in theaters to charge money for.
Correct.
That's the thing. Like, Yeah, the three castle sections, I think, as one singular unit would have been perfectly fine on television.
Right.
Right. Even if it were like released without commercials, like as is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the bar is lower, right? You're like when you're being judged against other animation on television,
right?
Like, I'm gonna be a lot more forgiving because that it's a different pool, it's a different production. Whereas this was literally released weeks after WALL-E,
right?
You know, and that animation is freaking beautiful and it's fluid and freaking Fred Willard shows up, right? Like,
right.
But then in this one, you have like really, really stilted facial animations, and the motions are not there either. But yeah, like just even Ahsoka going from like a neutral face to a smile is like the most painful thing to watch, because it's clearly like the corners of her lips are at point A, and then in 3 seconds they just need to be at point B up here, and it forms a smile. Like,
right.
It's just such a difficult thing to watch. And even years later, watching it on Netflix now, you know, even just on my television, it's like a tricky thing to watch. Like, even just judging it against other animation pieces, I would have been more forgiving. Doesn't mean I would have liked it any better, right? Because I never saw it theatrically. That said, I mean, you saw it theatrically, but I can't even imagine paying like $10, right? In the grand scheme of like other options to watch at the end of summer, because we're talking what, like August 15th.
August 15th. You're
still in the like right at the tail end of summer movie season, right? So that's what throws me off too. Like, I didn't pay for it, and yet I'm still
paying
really. Yeah, I'm just yeah, exactly. I'm just still like angry at these weird decisions that were made. Like,
yeah, I'm gonna give this one a month or two and then revisit it in one sitting.
Yeah,
and see how I feel about it then. But I was definitely tainted by breaking this thing apart.
Yeah,
and doing what we're doing here. But hey, you know, I'm not here to I have no idea what I'm saying. That's the truth.
That's good. That's fine. So, but we are here to talk about the Clone Wars, and that's exactly what we have done for, like, each of these episodes is average like 90 minutes.
Right.
So that's a solid like 6 hours of talking about just this goddamn 90-minute movie.
I can actually tell you how far along we are before starting recording this episode, including our 2 intro episodes. We are at 7 hours, 43 minutes, and 18 seconds.
Wowie.
So there you go, nerds out there wondering exactly how many seconds we've been talking about the Clone Wars and or ourselves or other things. But there you have it.
But just that there's that much dedicated to this movie that again, it's not even just like the animation itself too. Like, even when they're walking on Tatooine in this last section, I noticed, just like, I get it. Like, budgets are different. I get it. But when you put something in theaters, even on my TV at home, I could even tell that the sand that they were walking on was so pixelated because the resolution was so fucking low.
Right.
How am I still even noticing just on my normal TV, but then to blow it up to like a 20, 30, 40-foot movie screen, right? I can only imagine looked atrocious, right?
Right.
So it's weird, like little cuts like that, you know. Like, if you're gonna do it, go for it, but
like, do it all the way. It definitely feels like another pass through would have helped.
Yeah, just a little cleaning up. Like, I get it. You don't want to spend like $100 million for essentially a TV pilot, you know.
Yep.
But it does depress me That because
what was the budget on this movie anyway? Do you know that?
That I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't either.
But while you're kind of looking that up, I do want to kind of point out. So stepping away from just talking about Clone Wars specifically,
mm-hmm.
you know, I do like the idea of releasing television programs in theaters. This is gonna be a soapboxy segment coming up here. Because
be prepared.
Yeah. So, you know, television now in 2018, as we're recording this, definitely has broadened its range. So, like, you know, you still have your lower end TV with lower budgets, but it can still be entertaining and all that. But you have kind of like this new golden renaissance of television where you get shows like Game of Thrones that, yes, the budget is lower and the CGI is a lot more obvious than, say, like Star Wars or Transformers, right? But, like, damn it, there's a dragon on screen and it looks good enough, right? So they did a thing a couple years ago where they released into IMAX like the finale, the last 2 episodes of a certain season right before the following season came up. I'm not against that because the production quality is good enough.
Right.
Now, IMAX might be a kind of a step too far. So maybe if it was like released in regular theaters, right?
Right.
Like for a 1-week engagement or something like that. You know, like $10, whatever. Great. For 2 episodes, fantastic. Now, the other experiment that just happened this previous fall season, so in 2017 in September, Marvel made an attempt at this where they filmed the pilot to Inhumans with actual IMAX cameras.
Okay.
But did nothing else to put any production value into it whatsoever.
Right, like we're using a better camera, we're going to get a better product without
actually thinking about like lighting things or writing an actual script, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you had this weird thing, like it that to me went to prove that it's not the equipment that makes a filmmaker, it's the filmmaker that makes a filmmaker, right?
Right.
So great, like they shot this shitty pilot with IMAX cameras. So essentially all you got was a shitty looking pilot in higher resolution. Like,
right.
That's all you got.
You got a clear
look,
picture of a piece of shit.
Yeah, at how shitty the CGI and the makeup and all that shit. You know, so like, but it's really depressing because now at the same time, again, soapboxy, I'm going to try and wrap this up real quick. So movie theaters are in this weird bind where attendance is down, but box offices are still up because movie tickets cost more. So even with less people, you can get these like record breakers where, you know, opening weekends, you're still like with a mega blockbuster, you can still get like $100 million in a single weekend.
Yeah.
Right.
That
with less people.
Right. And opening weekend isn't even just fucking Friday, Saturday, Sunday anymore. I mean, you've got a full day on Thursday, or a half a day Thursday that's included there also. So, and from what I understand, like all pre-sale tickets, be it for whenever, you know, if a movie's coming out and you buy a ticket in advance for said movie, those ticket sales are counted for the opening weekend tally, even if it were for later in time.
That I'm not aware of. I've always gone under the assumption that those are they're only counting the box office receipts for up to Sunday. Because then later on, like, because they'll do an estimate Sunday itself, and they're kind of essentially guessing, like, well, we think for the rest of the day we'll get this much,
right?
And then Monday will come out and they'll do an actual tally of like how many tickets were sold for those past 3 days, and they have the option to include Thursday night or not.
Gotcha.
Right. So, if somebody on Wednesday before a movie came out bought a ticket for the following Wednesday. I don't believe that counts because then they do daily totals as well.
Right.
right? Because it would only take 2 seconds for somebody to look at like a Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday actual totals.
Right.
And if that doesn't add up to what they report as their weekend total, that takes 2 seconds to verify. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Gotcha.
That's part of it. So, but anyways, like my main point is TV is getting good enough that some of it can be released in theaters. And with a show like Game of Thrones, I think it'd be really fun to watch that with like an actual group of fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like the show airs like on Sunday night. Like I think it would be really freaking awesome if like Sunday night local time, 9 p.m. was like the first showing of whatever episode comes out that week.
Right.
And they just go ahead and keep playing that for the next week until Sunday 9 p.m. the next week show the next episode, right?
You need to start yourself a theater, man.
I would totally try and work those rights out with HBO. And like, of course, like, again, being television, I wouldn't charge like the full $12. But
right.
like, if a movie theater's goal is to just to get people in the door.
Right.
Right.
So you're talking about like a public pay-per-view type situation in a theater setting for regular episodic television.
Yes. For television that would be of the event sort, right?
Okay.
Like I can't imagine, say, back when it was on, like, I don't know, it's hard to call, right? But like if a show wanted to do it, more power to you. But like, but think about like the fandom behind like Big Bang Theory, right? Like that's a completely different looking show. Like that's a multicam sitcom. It looks like a multicam sitcom. But some Big Bang Theory fans that would be like so down to watch it with a group of people.
Right.
Right. And again, so like if a movie theater's main goal is just to get some people in the door, right? Because like the thing I think movie theaters are also missing is that, they're trying to like wow people. They're like, oh, we have like recliner seats and these seats move and now it's 3D. Oh, it's not 3D anymore, but hey, the seats are still moving if you want, Or like we'll serve a burger to you right at your seat, right?
Right.
I'm like, look, that sounds great, but you know what still keeps me home is the idea that there's some annoying fucktard behind me who won't shut the fuck up. Right? Like movie theaters for whatever reason, like, or movie theater chains.
Right.
Like AMC never talks about, hey, maybe if we just had like somebody kind of keeping an eye out to make sure that like a rowdy group of whoever, right? Like I've gone to the movies enough that it's like I don't even want to stereotype that because I've watched like a horror movie where it's definitely like a group of teens that somehow snuck in who won't shut the fuck up.
Right.
They're all rowdy. They're like, oh, this is so scary. But then like I freaking went with my girlfriend at the time to watch Mamma Mia, and it was a bunch of fucking like middle-aged women who thought they were there for like a fun concert series, right? Or like the Magic Mike thing where like the women in there think it's like a full-on like
sexual
live
experience.
strip show. Yeah, so they're allowed to just like yell through the entire fucking movie for no fucking reason, even though, hey, there's like a story thing I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. Especially because like that first one gets really fucking dark where the dude gets on drugs and shit. But these women are in there like, ooh, his abs are out. Ooh! Like, and yet, so then AMC, meanwhile, is like, well, why don't people want to show up? Like, maybe it's that we're not serving food. Like, no, that's not fucking it at all. Like, if I want a burger, I'm going to an actual burger place. Sorry.
So what you're saying is that we should not reach out to AMC for sponsorship of this episode? No,
not of this one. Sorry. I try and avoid movies at AMC.
Gotcha. We are way far off topic.
Yes, we are. So anyways, that was my long rant of I'm not against the idea of releasing television programming in theaters.
This is what we were getting to, people. This is it. So,
but
it's got to be done in the proper manner,
yes.
And you've got to make sure that the quality of the final product
holds up,
right?
Or otherwise, or let your program be charged at a lower discount rate, right?
That's an interesting concept too. That right? I don't know if we have time to get into right now, but
Inhumans was released in IMAX and it was getting charged $20 for something that looked like a television program. But if they released it in IMAX at a normal standard, like $10, $12, $15, depending on what city you live in, rate, I would have been there in a heartbeat just to check it out.
Yeah, I went and saw VeggieTales with my sister and my nephew. This is many years ago.
Yeah.
And, we paid like the full fucking $8.
Yeah.
But
the animation also looked like shit still, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, it looks like
regular VeggieTales.
Regular VeggieTales.
Yeah.
There was nothing special.
Yeah.
Except for it was in a movie theater.
Yeah. Well, because, like, just one last thing about the business end of it, because, like, other television programs have been released in theaters. So, like, I think the only one that really ever worked for me was Doctor Who. They did a 50th special that aired time and date every market. So in Great Britain, in the USA, whatever time zone you were in, it was matching up with the airing of it in Great Britain at like 8 p.m. or whatever, right?
So it was all time. It was like a global time sync.
Yes, global time sync of the show. Cool. Now, it was also being broadcast in theaters at the exact same time.
That's cool.
So my airing here in West Coast, California, was at like noon. And it was fun because I got to talk to like some old friends back in Michigan as we were like all getting ready to watch the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who.
Right.
Second thing of note was that the episode was filmed in 3D. And the only way to see it in 3D was if you had some special BBC channel and a 3D television, or you had to be in theaters for it.
Cool.
That was fucking awesome, right? And the production quality of it held up to that standard, right? And because it was like hosted by Fathom. If you go to movies a lot, Fathom is hosting. They do a lot of special events. They're their own special little thing. They've also aired like Sherlock and stuff. The interesting thing about Fathom though is that it's a special event, so they always charge more. Like that's the weird thing. So like around these parts, like a movie was like $13, but when I saw like one of the Sherlock Christmas specials a couple years back, it was like a $15-$16 ticket.
Right.
So again, it's going the opposite direction. Like sure, it was a special event. It's not all the time. But I'm just like, if you can charge more, then maybe for something that's like on a weekly basis, you could easily just charge less and people will know the difference, you know? Anyways, that's my very long rant on I would love to see more public experiments of this sort, but every time
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's just that unfortunately there's a mixed bag when these experiments happen. So yeah, like with Doctor Who, that was great. Sherlock was great, but then you have Clone Wars and Inhumans that totally fuck shit up for everything else, you know. So, anyways, that's my long rant on
fair enough
different mediums and how to compare them. So
fair enough.
Any response to anything else you want to say?
I think everything's been said.
Yeah,
on my end at least. So.
All right.
It was a good run this 4 weeks of the Clone Wars feature film. So next week we are moving on to somehow bigger and better things. Even though we're dropping down to just a single episode instead of an entire movie. And this is I think probably the biggest jump. Time-wise from release to release to stay in chronology, because we are going from August 15th of 2008 all the way to September 17th of 2010
Yeah.
to Season 3, Episode 1. And that's called Clone Cadets. So I'm going to go ahead and bet you that next week we are going to be introduced to some clones. And
they may or may not be cadets.
They may or may not be cadets. And we'll find out what that means next week, I guess. So in the meantime, if you want to respond to any of Lorenzo's ranting about movies and TV shows and other... hit us up on Facebook at Not the Nerds Podcast.
Yep.
Twitter at Not the Nerds. Instagram at Not the Nerds. If you would like to send a long form typed email, Gmail at Not the Nerds Podcast. Yeah, that's not what I meant to say. It's Not the Nerds Podcast at gmail.com.
That, yes. So,
and actually, hopefully soon to come, we will just have notthenerds.com.
Yes.
The website.
Yeah,
so.
that'd be awesome. And then we can kind of... Yeah, we still need to figure out what we're doing with that. That's a fun...
Yeah, that is in the works.
Yeah.
The URL is locked down, and we just need to go from there.
Yeah, we just need to figure out what exactly we want to do with that. So, maybe let us know what you would like it in that sort of format. But also like and... subscribe and review us wherever you are listening to this. So iTunes, Google Play is the main parts where it's at.
Right.
So please review and let us know what you guys think. So
and lastly, I guess thanks to you guys for listening, and thanks to Lindsay over at Strange Fantasy Music and Kevin, our graphic designer at They Call Me K-Dub on Twitter.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Until next week.
Yep.
These have been not the nerds you're looking for.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.